I have convened the North Atlantic Council today because of Russia's military action in Ukraine and because of President Putin's threats against this sovereign nation. What Russia is doing now in Ukraine violates the principles of the United Nations Charter. It threatens peace and security in Europe. Russia must stop its military activities and its threats. Today we will discuss their implications for European peace and security and for NATO's relationship with Russia. Afterwards, we will meet in the NATO-Ukraine Commission. We support Ukraine's territorial integrity and sovereignty. We support the right of the people of Ukraine to determine their own future without outside interference. And we emphasize the need for Ukraine to continue to uphold the democratic rights of all people and ensure that minority rights are protected. Ukraine is our neighbor, and Ukraine is a valued partner for NATO. We urge all parties to urgently continue all efforts to move away from this dangerous situation. In particular, I call on Russia to de-escalate tensions. We have just met in the North Atlantic Council and the NATO-Ukraine Commission to discuss the events unfolding in Ukraine. NATO allies have agreed a statement which sets out our position. We condemn Russia's military escalation in Crimea. We express our grave concern regarding the authorization by the Russian Parliament of the use of the armed forces of the Russian Federation on the territory of Ukraine. Military action against Ukraine by forces of the Russian Federation is a breach of international law. It contravenes the principles of the NATO-Russia Council and the Partnership for Peace. Russia must respect its obligations under the United Nations Charter and the spirit and principles of the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe, on which peace and stability in Europe rest. We call on Russia to de-escalate tensions. We call upon Russia to honor all its international commitments, to withdraw its forces to its bases, and to refrain from any interference elsewhere in Ukraine. We urge both parties to immediately seek a peaceful resolution through dialogue, through the dispatch of international observers under the auspices of the United Nations Security Council or the OSCE. We emphasize the importance of an inclusive political process in Ukraine based on democratic values, respect for human rights, minorities, and the rule of law, which fulfills the democratic aspirations of the entire Ukrainian people. Ukraine is a valued partner for NATO and a founding member of the Partnership for Peace. NATO allies will continue to support Ukrainian sovereignty, independence, territorial integrity, and the rights of the Ukrainian people to determine their own future without outside interference. We have just met in the NATO-Ukraine Commission at Ukraine's request, and we intend to engage with Russia in the NATO-Russia Council. Today, NATO made clear that we stand by Ukraine as a valued partner, and we stand by the norms and principles of international law. And with that, I'm ready to take your questions.
Marco Galdi, answer, Secretary. Is there any country that considered the option of demanding Article 4 activation because of the threat to the stability and peace in Europe that we have been referring the initial step? Thank you.
No one has requested to activate Article 4 at this stage, but obviously we have ongoing consultations. Actually, NATO allies consult on a daily basis.
What does it mean you're going to engage in the NATO-Russia Council? Did you call for one, and do you expect the Russians to answer the call? How do you characterize in this moment the quality of the relations with Russia?
We have very clear rules as regards the NATO-Russia Council. According to the founding documents, a meeting in the NATO-Russia Council will be convened if the chairman of the council convenes the meeting or upon request from a member of the council. And I have heard many members of the council asking for a meeting.
One last question, lady over there.
So there is a possibility of NATO-Russia Council in the nearby future, the coming week?
Certainly, there is a possibility that we will have a NATO-Russia Council meeting.
And one very last question over there.
Is there a possibility of NATO foreign ministerial meeting tomorrow, as most of the ministers are in town and John Kerry is very close in Paris?
I doubt that there will be a foreign ministers meeting in NATO. For practical and logistical reasons, it seems impossible to have a foreign ministers meeting at this stage. But of course, we also keep that option open.
Thank you very much.